entitled Purusha Shukta Confirmed, and we're reading the last text of the chapter, text 46. So before we start, I seek the blessings of all the devotees that I can speak something that is beneficial to all of us. I'll just repeat what I have heard from other devotees and what I have read from Srila Prabhupada's books. And I'll speak a little bit on the realizations I have according to my level. So we're reading from text 46. Pradhanyato yan risha amananti Leela Avataran Purushasya Bhumna Api yatam karna kashaya shoshan Anukramisheta iman supeshan Pradhanyato yan risha amananti Leela Avataram Purushasya Bhumnaha Apiyatam karna kashaya shoshan Anukramisheta iman supeshan. So we read word for word. Pradhanyataha, chiefly. Yan, all those. Rishe, O Narada. Amananti, worship. Leela, pastimes. Avataran, incarnations. Purushasya, of the personality of Godhead. Bhumnaha, the supreme. Apiyatam, in order to be relished by you. Karna, ears. Kashaya, foul matter. Shoshan, that which evaporates. Anukramishe, shall state one after another. They. Iman, as they are in my heart. Supeshan, all pleasing to hear. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. O Narada, now I shall state one after another the transcendental incarnations of the Lord, known as Leela Avataras. Hearing of their activities counteracts all foul matters accumulated in the ear. These pastimes are pleasing to hear and are to be relished. Therefore, they are in my heart. Please repeat. O Narada, now I shall state one after another the transcendental incarnations of the Lord, known as Leela Avataras. Hearing of their activities counteracts all foul matters accumulated in the ear. These pastimes are pleasing to hear and are to be relished. Therefore, they are in my heart. As it was said in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam 158, one cannot be fully satisfied by hearing unless and until one is given a chance to hear of the transcendental activities of the Lord. So Brahmaji is also trying in this verse to stress the importance of narrating the transcendental pastimes of the Lord as He comes and manifests Himself here on the surface of the material planets. Every living entity has a tendency to hear pleasing messages, and as such, almost every one of us is inclined to hear news and talks broadcast by the radio stations. But the difficulty is that no one is satisfied at heart by hearing all those messages. The cause of such dissatisfaction is the incompatibility of the message with the innermost stratum of the living soul. This transcendental literature is especially prepared by Srila Vyasadeva to give the utmost satisfaction to the people in general by narration of the activities of the Lord, as instructed by Narada Muni to Srila Vyasadeva. Such activities of the Lord are principally of two varieties. One concerns the mundane manifestation of the material creative force, and the other deals with his pastimes in the form of different incarnations in terms of the time and place. There are innumerable incarnations of the Lord, like the waves of the river flowing constantly in and out. Less intelligent persons take more interest in the creative forces of the Lord in the material world, and being disconnected from their relationship with the Lord, they put forward many theories of the creation in the name of scientific research. The devotees of the Lord, however, know well how the creative forces work concurrently by the action and reaction of the material energy of the Lord. Therefore, they take more interest in the transcendental activities of the Lord as he incarnates himself on the surface of the material world. Srimad Bhagavatam is the history of such activities of the Lord, and people who take interest in hearing Srimad Bhagavatam clear their hearts of accumulated mundane filth. There are 1,001 rash literatures on the market, but one who has taken interest in the Srimad Bhagavatam loses all interest in such filthy literatures. Sri Brahmaji is thus attempting to narrate the principal incarnations of the Lord so that they may be drunk by Narada as transcendental nectar. Prabhupada Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Bhagavan Krishna Prasthad Putali Srimati Bhir Krishna Goswami Tinamini. Namo Hamsani Kasha Prabhupada Priyati Shuddhita Siddhilin Dasya Sakramavini. Nama Om Vishnu Bhagavan Krishna Prasthad Putali Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaudamam Charini Nirvishesha Sunyavani Paschati. So in this purport, Prabhupada is mentioning, so Lord Brahma is talking to his son Narada Muni, and then Narada Muni instructed this knowledge to Vyasadeva. So we can see that the disciplic chain, the knowledge is coming down directly from Krishna to Brahmaji and then to Narada Muni, and from Narada Muni to Vyasadeva, and then the disciplic chain continues, and then we are receiving this knowledge from Srila Prabhupada, who is in the disciplic chain, and the knowledge is descending. So in this verse, Lord Brahma is going to talk to Narada Muni about the Leela Avataras. So literally the word Leela means pastimes, and Avataras means the Lord when he descends to the material platform. So they pastime incarnations of the Lord. And Prabhupada mentions very powerful words here. He mentions how by hearing the activities of the Lord, one's heart and mind are cleansed of all the filth and foul matter which is accumulated in the ear. So these are very powerful words, filthy and foul. It's in the material world, when someone or something is described as filth or filthy or foul, it's very derogatory and very degraded, very low mode of ignorance, matter and consciousness. So we hear from Bhagavad Gita that there's 8,400,000 species, and through the gradual process of evolution we come to this human form of life. And in this human form of life is very rare, because there's 400,000 categories of human form, and not every human form is able to discern subject matters on spirituality, because the consciousness is very degraded. So we heard yesterday's verse, Maharaj was talking about how people, there are also other living entities in the lower consciousness, and it mentions about the Bhutas, and then it mentions about Aborigines. So people whose consciousness is not that much developed, they're worshipping ghosts or other lower entities or material nature. So this human form of life, we have this ability to inquire, who am I? What am I doing here in the material world? Who is God, and what is my relationship with God? And by inquiring about this, we inquire from the authorized scriptures and the people who are following the process, and by hearing from them, inquiring submissively and humbly, and rendering humble menial devotional service to the great devotees, then the knowledge is opening up to us and our heart is becoming gradually cleansed. So Prabhupada mentions how the ears, we hear in spiritual life that we can see through our ears. So what does that mean is, because when we see certain things, it's even we can't see bacteria and germs, we need to see with the microscope, and sometimes our eyes may deceive us. Something from a distance may appear like something else, but when it appears closer, or when we move closer to that place, then we can see things more clearly. Just like the example Prabhupada gives, that the example of we seeing a mountain from a distance, but from a bird's eye view, the bird can see very clearly everything that's there. So as we approach the mountain closer and closer, we can see all the details of that mountain. But when we're from a distance, we just see a structure, the form of the mountain. So we are seeing through our ears, and we see through authorized scriptures, Shabda Brahma. So in Sri Ishopanishad, it mentions how we can perceive knowledge through different avenues. There's 3 different avenues. There's by sense perception, by hypothesis, and by authorized scriptures. So there's Anuman, Pratyaksha, and Shabda Brahma. So the most authorized and the most accurate and absolute knowledge is received from the scriptures, because that knowledge is descending directly from God, from Krishna, and it's pure and unadulterated, and that knowledge is that which purifies us. So Prabhupada mentions in this purport, hearing of the activities of the Lord counteracts all foul matters accumulated in the ear. So we have come in this human form of life, and we've transmigrated through so many life forms, and who knows, we've also come in many human forms of life. So we have accumulated so much foul matter and mundane filth in our consciousness. So Prabhupada mentions how we have a tendency for prajalpa, which is mundane, to hear mundane news and talks broadcast by the radio stations, and it's all filthy literature, because we can't get any satisfaction, because there's no substance in it, because we are spirit souls, we are covered by this material body. And Prabhupada mentions there's an incompatibility between spirit and matter. So however much we try to enjoy in this material world, we can't get any enjoyment. Like yesterday we had Trevor Prabhu's memorial, and a few devotees mentioned how Trevor Prabhu said he liked to also enjoy, but he did mention himself that there's no enjoyment. You can't get any enjoyment in the material world. So in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.7.42 purport, Prabhupada mentions a very powerful statement. He says, without God, everything is a failure. Unless there is knowledge of God, all advancement of material civilization, however dazzling, should be considered a failure. So there's many like dazzling, attractive things. There may be like disco lights or some fireworks, many dazzling things, or some kind of enjoyment in the material world. But if it's not connected with Krishna, then it's all a failure, complete failure. It's not going to carry us forward in our next life. But whatever little spiritual activity, devotional service we have done, that is to our eternal credit, and it's like a spiritual bank account which never diminishes even after performance of devotional service. So by doing devotional service, we get tangible transcendental bliss. In Srimad Bhagavatam 3.5.46 purport, it says, the devotee has only to hear about devotional activities which are as simple as anything in ordinary life, and he also acts very simply, so to act in a straightforward and unduplicitous way. And there's my god brother Padmalochan Prabhu. He was mentioning in his previous class that we need to cultivate and develop this humility, because without humility we won't benefit, and whatever we speak is not going to help anyone. So if we want to help ourselves or help anyone, we need to develop this important quality of humility, understanding that whatever knowledge, whatever opulence I have received, it's by the mercy of the Lord and His devotees, and I need to utilize this in the Lord's service and in the service of His dear devotees. And always maintain this humility that whatever I have is from Krishna and He can take it away. There's a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam which states that Krishna gives all opulence, and there's an English saying, pride comes before the fall. So when we think that we are the doer, or that everything is under our control and we are the one who is causing the happiness of someone, then that is the cause of our fall down, because Krishna is the ultimate beneficiary and He is the cause, and He is working through us as agents. So if we want to become confidential agents of the Lord, then we need to follow the authority of the Lord and His devotees, His dear devotees. Then we can become authorized agents, and then we get that Shakti or the empowerment to carry out the orders of Krishna and His devotees. So this power of sound vibration is so powerful that when it's used in Krishna's service, then we are able to become able instruments and able agents of the Lord. So in Srimad Bhagavatam 3.29 purport, it says if we don't utilize our senses or this speaking power in Krishna's service, it's just like the frogs croaking, inviting death. So when I read this before, I couldn't fully grasp the meaning of it until I came to Australia, and we were living at the old ashram, which is now the Krishna pad, and in the flood season there were many frogs which would come out and they would croak, and then this really I really kind of understood it a bit more. The frogs are croaking and they think it's sounding so beautiful. They are singing and they are attracting the mates, or they are trying to show off to the other male frogs, but they don't realize that the snake is hearing the vibration of their sound and is going to come and swallow them. So Prabhupada compares this snake to death. So we may be vibrating a lot of sound, but if it's not connected to Krishna, then our time of death is approaching closer and closer, and we'll be eaten by the death of time. And who knows that what next form of life we will receive. So even as aspiring devotees, we, in whatever stage of life or whatever level of consciousness we are on, we need to always apply Prabhupada's books according to where we are. So even as aspiring devotees, we might think, oh, this is just for the materialists. They are croaking like frogs and they are interested in mundane news and broadcast of radio station. But even for us, I'm speaking for myself, that sometimes we get distracted, or we hear something or we see a billboard, like some advertisement, or even these days you can't escape it. It's on Facebook, on social media, or whatever we hear. There's always this pull of Maya, like Maharaj was mentioning, Ramai Swami was mentioning how the material energy of the Lord Maya has two potencies, as Prabhupada mentions in Bhagavatam, the pulling down and the covering. So even as aspiring devotees, we need to always keep ourselves in the association of devotees, so that we're not influenced by the covering potency of Maya and this pulling down. It really pulls us down. There's this video that the devotees put on Facebook. It's I think some devotees also mentioned they got it from Mahatma Prabhu's japa workshops. They put a whole video together where devotees are chanting japa and then they're talking, and then they end up talking japa, or they're watching little Krishna or some Krishna conscious things on the TV or the screen, and then it ends up not fully absorbed in hearing and chanting. Or there's one other one some ladies did, where they're chanting japa, and then immediately when they wake up, the phone goes to Facebook. And it's an extreme example, but we can all get caught down, because the Maya has this, like Vaisheshika Prabhu talks about, you get your finger caught in this trajectory, this wheel, and then at the end of the day you might be pulled, and your whole body's pulled into that trajectory and squashed, and all blood and everything comes out. So it's so powerful, this potency of Maya. It can really cover us, and when we kind of come sometimes, like Prabhupada mentions, I think my husband was mentioning yesterday that someone asked Radhanath Swami that are we ever out of envy? He says, no, we are always, our nature is always envious. We just need to worry about how to surrender to Krishna and how to develop this compassionate nature. So our nature, when we're coming in the mature world, is that we are trying to enjoy. So it's already a given. So whatever we do, it's when we have a moment of clarity, and we are fortunate that we are living in the association of devotees, so we have maybe a little bit more moments of clarity and connection with Krishna, that we need to take advantage of this spiritual knowledge and try to progress on this path. So Prabhupada mentions in this purport 3.5.46, he said devotional hearing, the devotee has only to hear about devotional activities which are as simple as anything in ordinary life, and he also acts very simply. So it sounds very simple for the simple, but why is it that we get caught up in other things? It's because I was also reading this other I couldn't find it when I was doing my research, but I've written it down somewhere, where it says that the reason why we hear that it's so simple just by hearing, but it says, Prabhupada mentions there, that we need to hear continuously. Just like in Srimad Bhagavatam, there's the famous Shrimnatam Svakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridayanto Stohi Abhadrani Vidunoti Surisitam. So Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. The word urge is so powerful that we need to develop this urge urgency to hear about the transcendental matter of the Lord, and in the association of devotees. Nasta prayashu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhakti bhavati naishtiki. So by regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So it sounds very simple that just by attending Bhagavatam class daily, by hearing, and it is very simple, but the power of Maya is so powerful that it pulls down and it covers us. So I was remembering one class, and I was going through my notes, and there was a class Ramai Swami gave here in 2016 before he moved here. He was visiting, and he mentioned how sincerity is not enough. We need to act on this knowledge and to take it to heart. And we need to try to be conscious in every activity that we do, whether it's, sometimes, as aspiring devotees, we think, okay, this so-called higher service is worshipping the deities, but it's not. Every service is equal. The test is in the consciousness. So whatever activity we do, whether it's cleaning the temple floor or weeding the garden or making ghee-wicks or doing the backdrops or whatever we're doing, or changing the backdrops, no service is small or insignificant. Every service is equal. Like Prabhupada mentions about I think Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentioned, better to be a sincere sweeper on the street than a pujari who has the consciousness that, oh, now I'm doing pujari, everyone's looking at me. So the test is in the consciousness. Whatever we're doing, it's in our consciousness. Or do we want to take the fast track? We want to take the elevator upstairs, up the 50-story building. We don't want to walk down the stairs and then we huff and puff and then we might collapse and end up in hospital, and then we come back 2 months later and go back up the same step. Do we want to do that, or do we want to fast track our spiritual life and go up the elevator? And it's not easy, but by the association of devotees, we can do it. So how can we do it? By anavrita shabdat, liberation by sound. In Srimad Bhagavatam 3.26.32 purport, Prabhupada mentions the entire material manifestation began from sound, and sound can also end material entanglement if it has a particular potency. The particular sound capable of doing this is transcendental vibration. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sound is the beginning of the creation of all material objects for our sense gratification. Similarly, if sound is purified, our spiritual necessities also are produced from sound. So sound can be either degrading or it can also elevate us. It's our choice how we utilize that sound. And also it mentions in Bhagavatam 2.8.17 purport, to hear the activities of the Lord means to associate with the Lord directly. And association with the Lord directly means purification from material contamination. So by hearing about Krishna, hearing about Krishna's dear devotees, our heart becomes purified and cleansed. And we hear about Parikshit Maharaj. He only had 7 days and he was going to be bitten by Takshaka, a big snake bird. We see a photo in Bhagavatam. It's a huge, like a cobra looking snake, and it has huge kind of like the hood, and it's a snake bird. But Parikshit Maharaj didn't have any fear. Like the other day I was walking and I thought I saw a brown snake and I got such a fright and I ran so fast. But we told we're not supposed to run, we're supposed to back up very slowly. But Parikshit Maharaj, he had no fear. In Bhagavatam 2.8.26 purport it says, Maharaj Parikshit was not at all afraid of death, for he was fully encouraged by the message of the Lord. One who is fully absorbed in Achyuta Katha, infallible talks, can never be afraid of anything in this world. So Maharaj Parikshit, he wasn't afraid of this huge, humongous snake, Takshaka. In fact, there's one picture where he's meditating because he already left his body and Takshaka is there with his fangs and he's having the fire. So in Bhagavatam 177 it says, simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion and fear. But there's one big danger sign, caution sign, which is given is that Prabhupada mentions how we need to hear from authorized devotees. So it says that if we hear from the lips of someone who's not practicing Krishna consciousness, it's like drinking the milk that is drunk by a snake, and that milk becomes poisonous and we will be dead if we drink that milk. So in spiritual life we will be finished. So in practicing spiritual life doesn't mean we all airy-fairy and all love and peace and everyone love and peace. We need to use our discrimination, and Prabhupada very clearly mentions here, discrimination doesn't mean we judge others. Respect is there for everyone, yes, but we need to use our intelligence. We see that certain association is not elevating us, bringing us closer to Krishna. Then we need to respect from a distance, but also associate, take advantage of association of devotees that we want to develop the qualities they have developed so that we can progress on the spiritual path. So it mentions there in Bhagavatam 298 purport, transcendental sound must be received from the right source. The secret of success is to receive the sound from the right source of a bona fide spiritual master. Then the path of liberation is guaranteed. Mundane manufactured sound has no potency, and as such, seemingly transcendental sound received from an unauthorized person also has no potency. So it may seem like, oh, it's transcendental, like my spiritual master, he was talking about this famous musician who's not a devotee. His name is a name of Krishna, and he calls himself that name and das. And he was once interviewed, my Guru Maharaj mentioned, he was once interviewed by someone, and he says, you chant Hare Krishna? He says, yes, I chant that S. He used the S word. So someone who has no realization, who's not practicing, what can they give? Nothing. It's empty. It's like beating the empty husk. They say you try to get some grain, but the husk is empty for a rice grain, or you try to beat it, but it's empty. There's nothing there, no substance. So the disciple, however, must be ready to execute the order of the bona fide spiritual master. So we need to act on this knowledge. So that's the duty of the disciple, a loving duty, loving service. So this completely faithful execution of the order of the bona fide spiritual master is the secret of success. So when we hear spiritual knowledge, Krishna is the friend in our heart. And in Bhagavatam 371 purport it says, then one who hears about Krishna, who is dwelling in the heart, he's dwelling in all our hearts. Krishna, who is the best well-wishing friend, purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. So Krishna will cleanse and purify our heart. So we need to hear more and more this Bhagavatam in the association of devotees, and then it will act in our heart, because we have transmigrated through so many life forms, and we don't know how many also human forms. We've accumulated so much filth, so much garbage, that some of it is even in our subconscious. So by hearing in the association of devotees, it's all cleansed, our heart becomes cleansed, and it's tangible, we can experience it. So we need to drink through oral reception, fully filled with the nectarian message of the Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of life known as material enjoyment. So in the, let's read the translation again. O Narada, now I shall state one after another the transcendental incarnations of the Lord known as Leela Avataras. Hearing of their activities counteracts all foul matters accumulated in the ear. These pastimes are pleasing to hear and are to be relished. Therefore they are in my heart. So by hearing the pastimes of Krishna, then our heart becomes cleansed. So Kartik month is coming up soon, Damodar month, and we'll be hearing every day for a whole month the pastimes of Krishna, and our heart will become purified. So any questions, comments? Regan Prabhu.
Can you share activity of Krishna?
Activity of Krishna? Did you say activity of Krishna? Damodar Leela is coming up, so Krishna's one of his activities is stealing butter. So he loves stealing butter, and we hear sometimes there's this condition called kleptomaniac, where people like to steal and they get some enjoyment just by stealing, but they don't really need it. So why is that enjoyment coming? Is because it's in Krishna. But in Krishna, when Krishna does it, then it's purifying when we hear of his stealing. But when we steal or we hear of others stealing, it's degrading. So when anything is connected to Krishna, it purifies our hearts. So Krishna, one of his main activities as a child was stealing butter. So we'll hear a lot about that. We'll be reading the translation every day in the month of Damodar, where he's running with his 2 little feet, and Mother Yashoda is chasing him because he stole butter and he cracked the butter pots and he was feeding it to the monkeys. And then he was caught by Mother Yashoda, and he's rubbing his eyes, and the black mascara is running, and he's afraid of Mother Yashoda, and his beautiful shark-shaped earrings are swinging to and fro, and his lotus eyes are looking fearful at Mother Yashoda. But when we hear that pastime, the Leela pastimes of the Lord, then that's purifying to our heart. So thank you for ending over.
Thanks for the lovely class. You were talking about how important it is to hear, and sometimes it's really easy to hear and to read. You can go through patches and you can do it all day, every day. But sometimes I see devotees may go through struggles and difficulties in life, may make offences, something like this. They may lose a taste, they may struggle to sit down for a certain amount of time each day and read. What advice would you give to keep that taste, or to... Yeah.
I need some advice. Well, what I've heard devotees say is that when we keep association of devotees, just like you have good friendship with Suratana Prabhu and Giridhari Prabhu, and you have a good sangha. So when we associate with devotees who have that taste, that means even if we're doing other activities, we're not reading at that time, then we're talking about Krishna. I was just listening to a class recently by Guru Maharaj, Krishna Goswami, and he was saying that even if we don't read, at least we can read through other means by hearing. So I don't really get to read like for fixed amount of time, or a gap of time which is just allocated to reading, but I like to hear a lot. So my sister she sends me so many lectures, or she put me onto BVL, which is the Bhakti Vedanta library, so we can listen on our phone. So that is also hearing and reading, is by having at least minimum half an hour or more of hearing or reading or listening to lectures and doing service with devotees. Like we have here, we have a feast kitchen as well, so sometimes there's 1 or 2 devotees there, so we share our realizations, talk about Krishna. Then it's gradually purifying, and then the taste does come. When we associate with devotees, we actually experience it. The taste comes, and we want to hear, we want to read, or we want to research a certain pastime. So Krishna somehow tricks us into even doing that, because it says there in Bhagavatam, it states that Krishna is our well-wishing friend, and when he sees that sincerity, that then he will make arrangement somehow or other through other devotees, but just by doing our daily activities, our service, then we're getting to read, we're getting to hear and chant. By hearing, we're getting to read as well. So, association of devotees. Any other questions, comments? So thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Kota Vaishnava ki jai.